Imagine, like a digital underground railroad right now, today, where fiber optic cables and, encrypted signals are actively bypassing the borders of the most heavily guarded nations on Earth.
Right. Just completely flying under the radar.
Exactly. So welcome to the Missions Connect Deep Dive podcast. Our mission here, as always, is blessing the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience.
And we're really thrilled you are with us because, this deep dive is a tool that's carefully designed to prepare your mind and your heart for the week ahead.
Yeah, today we're previewing week 13 of the Missions Connect app, which is a ministry of assistingtoobey.com. And that covers March 23rd through the 29th, 2026.
And I think we really need to start by just acknowledging the context of where you, the listener, are probably sitting right now.
Absolutely.
Because you have just come through 5 of the most sustained, demanding, and honestly exhausting weeks of focused intercession you can experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you have been walking through the 30 days of prayer for the Muslim world.
All right, you've been just pouring yourself out. And, well, we're using the weekly preview as our map for today's conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the overarching theme that the weekly preview lays out for week 13 is a journey of gratitude.
Which is such an important pivot.
It is. But it's important to understand the framework here. The app isn't like asking you to just check a box and forget about these regions.
Right, because the really the spiritual temptation after a 5-week marathon of intense focus is to just collapse, to just move on and completely leave the subject behind.
Just take a nap and forget about it.
Exactly. But the weekly preview argues that this week isn't about moving on from the Muslim world at all. It's about transitioning into a state of worship specifically because of what you just spend weeks interceding for.
Right.
You aren't leaving these nations behind. You're just adopting a completely different posture toward them.
Okay, so let's unpack this because here is where it gets really interesting. We're going to examine the massive documented shifts happening right now in historically closed nations.
Yeah, the data is wild.
It really is. And we are going to look at the mechanics of how the weekly preview directly links your prayers to those shifts. But before we get to the data, let's talk about the spiritual physics of exhaustion and renewal.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Because if we're being completely honest, carrying the weight of unreached peoples is draining.
Oh, it's profound emotional and psychological heavy lifting. I mean, you are actively focusing on the crises, the lack of access, the struggles of entire populations.
It's like you've been running a marathon while carrying a backpack full of rocks.
That's a great way to put it.
You stood in the gap for the Jordanian Arabs, the Northern Kurds, the Amazigh. You focused your energy on the Amak, the Banjar, the Mampruzi.
Yeah.
And that takes a massive toll on your own reserves.
Yeah.
So I want to offer some pushback here, or at least voice a question I think a lot of dedicated app users might feel.
Okay, let's hear it.
If there's still so much urgent need in these regions, it feels almost, self-indulgent to stop asking and just start praising. Isn't pivoting to gratitude essentially a passive retreat?
Right.
Like taking a luxury break on the sidelines while the work is still unfinished.
Well, what's fascinating here is how common that exact feeling is among highly empathetic people. But I want to push back on that premise a bit.
Okay.
Within the framework of the weekly preview, praise is absolutely not a retreat from the mission. It's actually framed as an active, crucial mechanism within the mission itself.
So it's part of the work.
Exactly. To understand this, we have to look at the biblical foundation the guide points to, which is Isaiah 40, verse 31.
Right.
It says, "Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint."
Yeah, and we hear that verse all the time. I mean, it's practically the default text for a motivational poster or a coffee mug.
Right. We do treat it like nice inspirational poetry. But the weekly preview highlights that this is actually a conditional promise. It describes a cause and effect mechanic. Think of it like the physics of a battery. You cannot continuously output energy, which is what petitionary prayer is, without eventually draining your reserves to zero.
You just burn out.
Exactly. Active hope and worship are the actual mechanisms required to plug back into a power source. The guide argues that if you don't intentionally transition from asking to praising, you will simply burn out. You won't be able to sustain the intercession.
So it's not ignoring the work, it's literally the recharging process necessary for the next phase of the work.
Precisely. And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, consider the specific underground believers the guide had you focus on over the last few weeks.
The ones in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan.
Yeah, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Bangladesh, Turkmenistan, and Saudi Arabia. I mean, these are environments where professing faith carries severe life-altering consequences.
Absolutely.
When you intentionally shift your focus to celebrate God's sovereignty over these heavily restricted nations, you are reminding yourself that the outcome doesn't rely entirely on your personal stamina.
Right. It relies on an authority much larger than governments or borders.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you have to inhale eventually, right?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the core of this deep dive. Why exactly is the weekly preview guiding you into this journey of gratitude this particular week?
Well, because the guide documents that the prayers of the last 5 weeks are already generating visible historic responses.
Yeah, the data presented in the 2026 edition of the 30 Days of Prayer Guide is honestly staggering.
It really is. It outlines what can only be described as like a tectonic shift in the cultural and spiritual landscape.
But again, I have to play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
We are constantly inundated with news about closed borders, strict authoritarian regimes, internet blackouts, secret police, all of that.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak.
It's incredibly easy for a listener to sit on their couch, look at their phone, and wonder, did my intentional focus actually penetrate the borders of a place like Saudi Arabia?
Well, that raises an important question, and it's the exact question the data in the guide seeks to answer.
Yeah.
According to their documentation, there is a massive paradigm shift happening right now. For decades, Muslim background believers were primarily viewed as the recipients of a message brought by outsiders.
Right, like foreign missionaries.
Exactly. But the guide reports that this is no longer the case. They are now the primary co-laborers carrying that message forward from the inside out.
Wow. So the movement has become indigenous. It's not people trying to smuggle something in. It's a grassroots shift.
Right. And the prime example the weekly preview uses is Iran. The guide cites reports indicating that over 1 million former Muslims have come to faith in the 21st century.
1 million. In a nation where the government is fiercely intertwined with a very specific, strict interpretation of religion?
Yeah. And the data goes further. The guide references reports that 50,000 mosques have closed across Iran.
Okay, wait, stop right there. 50,000.
50,000.
I mean, that is a massive structural collapse. But couldn't a critic argue that this isn't necessarily a spiritual revival, but rather just a symptom of intense socio-political disillusionment?
How do you mean?
Like, if people are frustrated with a theocratic government, they might just be abandoning the state religion at a protest, right?
That is a brilliant point, and sociologists would completely agree with you. When a government enforces a religion with an iron fist, any political frustration inevitably becomes religious frustration.
Right.
But here's why the weekly preview highlights this. That disillusionment creates a massive ideological vacuum.
Ah, I see.
The people aren't just abandoning a system, they are actively seeking an alternative to fill that void. And according to the reports, that deep spiritual hunger is being met in unprecedented ways.
So the political climate actually accidentally fertilized the ground for this shift.
Exactly. And then the guide points to Saudi Arabia.
Right.
The weekly preview describes a distinct spiritual momentum sweeping through a nation that has been, well, locked down by its dominant religion for 1,400 years.
Wow.
14 centuries of a seemingly impenetrable wall, and now indigenous sources are reporting unprecedented internal movements.
1,400 years. That really puts the scale of what you, the listener, have been focusing on into perspective.
Yeah, it does.
And a lot of this momentum the guide talks about is tied to very specific cultural moments, particularly Laylat al-Qadr.
Yes, the Night of Power. In 2026, this fell on March 17th and 18th.
Okay.
And to understand the mechanics of this, you have to look at the cultural context. Historically, this is the holiest night of Ramadan. It commemorates the night Muslims believe the Quran was first revealed.
Right.
It is a night characterized by intense, earnest seeking. People stay awake, praying for God to speak, to give them a revelation, or to show them favor.
So there is already a heightened state of spiritual expectancy. They are literally asking for an encounter.
Exactly. And what the weekly preview documents are incredible. Consistent testimonies from across the region of Jesus appearing to individuals in dreams and visions precisely on this night.
That's amazing. Just think about the timing of that. You, the app user, were intentionally focusing on these regions, asking for a breakthrough, and simultaneously, on the exact night, millions are culturally primed to seek a revelation. The guide reports these profound encounters happening.
Yeah, the timing is undeniable.
It ties perfectly into the scripture connection provided in the weekly preview, Psalm 107, verses 1 and 2. It reads, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, his love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story, those he redeemed from the hand of the foe."
Let the redeemed tell their story. That is the pivotal shift.
Yeah.
The indigenous believers are now the ones telling their families, their neighbors, and their communities. It creates a network effect that is incredibly difficult for any central authority to stop.
Which brings up a really fascinating logistical question.
Okay.
If human missionaries from the West cannot legally or physically cross these borders, and these new indigenous believers are scattered across vast, restricted regions, how on earth are they getting resources? How are they connecting?
That's the million-dollar question.
And the answer the weekly preview provides brings us to one of the most unexpected twists in modern missiology, which is the digital realm.
Yes, this is where we see the intersection of modern technology and global connection in a truly fascinating way.
It is the ultimate irony. I mean, we generally view modern technology as the thing we use to doom scroll, or to stream endless entertainment, or to argue with strangers online.
Right, that's a bad rap.
But the weekly preview highlights that this exact same technology is functioning as a digital underground railroad.
A digital underground railroad is the perfect way to visualize it. And this isn't just a hopeful theory from a single app developer, you know?
Right.
The weekly preview cites the Lausanne Movement's Global Voices report. They gathered data from 1,030 mission leaders across 119 countries.
Wow.
And 95% of those leaders explicitly identified digital spaces not just as a helpful accessory, but as an essential mission field.
95%. That is a global consensus. But let's look at how this practically works. The guide points out the coordination happening right on the Missions Connect app.
Yeah, the logistics of this are amazing.
Think about it. Believers from El Salvador, Uganda, South Korea, the UK, and the US were all logging in and focusing their intentions on the exact same Tej Bozo fishermen, or the exact same Pashtun tribesmen, at the exact same time.
It is a level of synchronized global focus that simply was not technologically possible for the first 2,000 years of human history.
It's mind-blowing.
But it is a two-way street. Technology isn't just coordinating the people on the outside, it's delivering the resources to the people on the inside.
Right.
The weekly preview specifically notes the use of VPN's virtual private networks actively carrying resources into heavily restricted nations like Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan.
And just to clarify for anyone not deeply entrenched in tech, a VPN essentially wraps your internet connection in a secure, encrypted tunnel. So when an authoritarian firewall tries to look at what you were downloading, it just sees scrambled data. It's like sending a locked safe through the mail. But again, my pushback would be a massive spike in VPN usage in a restricted country doesn't necessarily equal a spiritual awakening, right? Couldn't it just be citizens trying to bypass state censorship to get access to unbiased news or even just Western entertainment?
Absolutely. And that is the brilliant, subtle mechanic of this digital railroad.
Okay.
Citizens are absolutely using VPNs to find uncensored news or social media, but while they are traversing those secure tunnels, they are simultaneously discovering the resources that the guide mentions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are seeking political truth and stumbling into spiritual resources.
That is incredible. And the guide mentioned satellite broadcasts as well, which bypass the internet entirely.
Right, completely different infrastructure.
Because you can put guards at a physical border, you can throttle bandwidth at a server farm, but you cannot easily stop a satellite signal from dropping directly into a living room in Saudi Arabia.
You really can't. And the scale of the digital tools mentioned in the guide is massive. I mean, the YouVersion Bible app has over 500 million downloads, translating texts into localized heart languages.
And the weekly preview also highlights tools like the Jesus Film and God Tools, which are specifically designed to be offline capable.
Yes, that's a huge point.
So even if a regime completely shuts down the internet in a region to stop a protest, These individuals already have the material saved directly on their devices. They can share it via Bluetooth or local networks without ever pinging a cell tower.
It is incredibly resilient, and the weekly preview connects this global digital gathering to the vision in Revelation 7, verse 9.
Right.
It says, "After this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb."
So what does this all mean for you, the app user? How does the weekly preview suggest you practically apply all of this complex data to your life this week?
Well, the guide structures week 13 to organically walk you through these different facets of gratitude. Okay. Instead of just a vague sense of thankfulness, it directs your focus specifically. It moves you from reflecting on the sheer scale of the global prayer movement, the fact that believers across 6 continents united for 1.9 billion people, to specifically acknowledging the digital tools, the VPNs, and the satellite broadcasts that are bypassing borders.
It's a very intentional progression.
Very.
But the guide also lays out some specific practical challenges for the user. One of the Thanksgiving challenges asks if you can spend just 12 minutes a day specifically focused on gratitude.
Yeah.
But the other challenge really caught my eye. The guide asks if the user is willing to fast for one meal this week, strictly to adore and express gratitude without asking for anything.
That is a fascinating psychological and spiritual exercise.
Right. Because normally fasting is treated as an emergency flare.
Yeah.
You fast when you desperately need a breakthrough or when you are petitioning for something urgent.
Mm-hmm.
Why would the weekly preview ask users to skip a meal just to say thank you?
Because it completely rewires the practitioner's mindset. When you link the physical discomfort of fasting to a state of profound gratitude rather than a state of desperate need, you are training your brain to rest in the reality of what has already been accomplished.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah, you are physically embodying the transition from exhaustion to renewal that we talked about earlier.
It stops the frantic cycle of always needing to fix the next problem and forces you to anchor yourself in the victories that are currently happening.
Exactly.
And speaking of visualizing those victories, the weekly preview highlights a specific resource that sounds incredible. It is a documentary called More Than Dreams.
Yes. If the concepts we've discussed today feel a bit abstract, this is the perfect resource.
Okay.
The documentary features very careful, dramatic reenactments of real individuals from Egypt, Iran, Turkey, Nigeria, and Indonesia.
Wow, so all over.
Yeah, and these are deeply researched accounts of people coming to faith specifically through the types of supernatural visions and dreams. The weekly preview documented around Layla al-Qadar.
And the guide challenges users to not just watch it, but to share one of those specific testimonies with someone else. You know, a friend, a family member, or a small group.
Right.
Because when you share the mechanics of how this is happening, you aren't just reciting facts, you are actively participating in the momentum.
You are expanding the network.
Exactly. Okay, as we bring this deep dive to a close, there is one final, incredibly provocative thought presented in the weekly preview that we really need to sit with.
Yeah, this part really struck me.
When discussing the ultimate destination of all this focused intercession, the guide references the imagery of prayers being held in golden bowls before the throne of the Lamb.
And if we connect this imagery to the bigger picture of what we've discussed today, it radically alters how we evaluate the time spent focusing on these regions.
How so?
Well, we are very conditioned to look for immediate observable cause and effect. We look at the data, the VPN usage, the mosque closures, the documented testimonies.
Right. We want to see the results now.
Exactly. But think about the physics of the concept the guide presents here. If every single moment of intercession you offered up over the last 5 weeks doesn't just evaporate, but is permanently held and preserved in a golden bowl, what is the actual lifespan of your effort?
Wow. That is a staggering question. It implies that your actions don't have an expiration date.
Exactly. You might be seeing the first few drops of impact today, like a cultural shift in Iran, a digital underground railroad in Turkmenistan.
Yeah.
But if those efforts are permanently preserved, what generational cascade of events did you just set into motion?
Oh, man.
I mean, the prayers you focused on the Banjar community who have lived 500 years without resources in their language might be the exact mechanism that waters a cultural shift 50 or 100 years from now.
It means that sitting in your living room and focusing your intention on a map wasn't just an exercise in empathy. It was an active participation in a multi-generational shift.
And that, as the weekly preview suggests, is worth pausing everything else to celebrate.
It absolutely is. And I want to take a moment to personally acknowledge you, the the listener, and especially the premium subscribers of the app.
Yes, thank you.
The weekly preview makes it clear that your consistent participation, your focus, and your willingness to engage with these complex global realities truly matter.
They really do.
This Week 13 material is designed as a gift to you, a structured space to pause, to observe the data, and to recharge.
It is a necessary deep breath before whatever comes next.
So to fully step into this journey of gratitude and to access all the daily devotionals, which range from examining 1 Corinthians 15 verse 58 to Matthew 9 verse 38, make sure you download the web-based app.
Highly recommended.
You can access it right now by simply clicking the link in the description or by directly visiting assisting2obey.com. That is assisting, the number 2, obey.com.
Check it out.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep blessing the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience.
So, you want a faith that actually matters, right? You want to make a difference in the world, to see the gospel changing lives, to know that your walk with God and His Word is impacting more than just your own life. Yeah, you want your life to count for the nations. But here's the thing. You're busy, maybe overwhelmed. You're pulled in 20 different directions. And even though you want to engage in missions and the Great Commission, you don't always know what to pray for, what's happening globally, or what your next step should be. The desire to obey is there, but the pathway isn't always clear. Let the Missions Connect app show you the way. Every day, you'll get a missions-focused devotional with a simple, practical action step and an option to share with the Missions Connect community. Every week, you get 3 strategic prayer focuses with fresh daily text and audio prayers, so you're never guessing about what to pray for. And when you're ready, you'll find opportunities to actually get involved in God's global work. Everything in the devotional and prayer section is free forever, but we offer you the opportunity to try the premium version for 15 days. You want to impact the nations with the gospel? With Missions Connect, now you can. Missions Connect, helping you bless the nations through prayer, knowledge, and obedience. A ministry of assisting2obey.com.